Once again, a video full of generalizations. But over the 20 years I've lived in Japan, I've met certain types of Japanese. I'm going to share those with you today. One is the very helpful or overly helpful Japanese person. Now, they're wonderful people, and if you ask for directions, instead of telling you, they'll take you there. There's the person who lived overseas 20 years ago and can't wait to go back. I think they're in a permanent state of reverse culture shock. They find Japanese rules and society too rigid. There's the English bandit, aka the vampire. Some might think they're just out for free English lessons. A lot of them are out for clout. They want to be able to tell their friends, hey, I spoke to a foreigner. But if you have time, talk to them for a second, you'll make their day. There's the gaijin allergy. Now, I kind of make an analogy to being starstruck, like they're not used to seeing foreigners. They see one and they're like, oh, what do I do? And really you don't have to do anything, but they want to make it a point to tell you, I don't speak English, or it's really awkward to be around foreigners for me. They don't have to tell you that, but for some reason, they feel compelled to tell you that. There's also the you don't exist Japanese. So for example, they'll put a sign out that says, we only have Japanese speaking staff, we only have a Japanese menu. If you speak English, please try another place. Now, I don't think they mean anything. It's just that they put all their time into making food, not learning English. And so when a tourist comes and orders something and there's misunderstanding, they don't understand the prices or something, they think that foreigners are just too troublesome. So how to deal with them? Don't go to their restaurant. Then there's the gaijin hunter. To her, you're arm candy. Doesn't really matter who you are, as long as you're foreign. She speaks fluent English, but assures you, you are her first foreign boyfriend. Hint, you're not. Then there's a passive-aggressive critic who will point out differences between your home and Japan, and they make a hierarchy where Japan always wins. And they will say things like, well, I'm not saying one culture is better or one country's better, but we don't have any obese people in Japan. I'm not saying one country's better, I'm not saying Japan is better or your home is better, but we don't have crime in Japan. The passive-aggressive critic will often tell you to do certain things because that's how we do it in Japan. If you fact-check them, you'll find out it's really just a personal pet peeve. Then there's the gaijin reminder who treats every foreigner like they just got off the airplane. They need to use a knife and fork because they're not sophisticated enough to use chopsticks. Their sole purpose in life is to remind you to stay in your lane. And no matter how good your Japanese gets, they will find something wrong with it. Remember my other video where I talked about the difference between Tokyo ni ikimasu and Tokyo e ikimasu? I got a really funny comment. They said, you know, your pronunciation on ni and e, you overemphasize those too much. And that was actually the point. So for the person who wants to remind me that my Japanese is not that good, you're right. Moving on, there's the wannabe Westerner. They're the person who's adopted another country as their home country, and they copy all the stereotypes of that particular country. They might wear a New York baseball cap. They might answer you in English, even though you speak fluent Japanese. And they might use a Western name. For example, and I just made this name up, you might meet somebody and he says, my name is Toshifumi Tanaka. Call me Tom. And in their email address, Toshifumi, parentheses, Tom Tanaka. Now this is great because sometimes Japanese names are difficult to pronounce. So giving Westerners a Western name to call you by is great. But when you call the company and say, hey, is Tom there? Nobody's gonna know who you're talking about. There are also the people who change the spelling of their name to look more Western on social media. So Mariko, M-A-R-I-K-O, might write her name with an L instead of an R. And Yuko is actually written Y-U-K-O, but she might replace the K with a C to kind of Westernize it a little bit. Now there's the truly international person, and these people are real gems. If you can make a friend with somebody who's truly international, you've struck gold. Now, like I said in my other video, I have a podcast. I interviewed somebody who's truly international. Her name is May, and there's a link in the description. She speaks fluent English, fluent Japanese, completely able to move between Western and Japanese society, and all the mannerisms, all the language, and the thinking. She was the first female teacher of Ashtanga Yoga in Japan, and that's worth a listen. Now, it's on YouTube, but it's audio, but I think you'll really enjoy the story she tells. The great thing about the truly international person is they see you as an individual. Like I said, a lot of Japanese tend to treat every foreigner like they're part of just one group, Japanese and everybody else. But the truly international person will see you as an individual. And that's why if you can make friends with somebody who's truly international, you have struck gold. In my other video, I talk about the different types of gaijin you'll meet in Japan, and I got a playlist of the podcast. When you have some time, sit down and check it out.